If you're looking for the latest on Jim Harbaugh, it is on our previous podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, go to the previous one. We dedicated an entire podcast to it. We got other stuff to cover. The Wild Wild West is up for grabs in the Big Ten. There's an injury for Iowa. It could cost them. A lot of teams are looking for bowl bids this weekend. We got a lot to do. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I am Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate you. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for the first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Bowl eligibility is up for grabs this weekend. We have this weekend's games and the next weekend's games, and that's it. And a challenge for the Iowa Hawkeyes, another bad injury. Plus, we'll preview the entire weekend, and we'll have our pigskin picks. Didn't do as well last weekend, but we've been doing pretty well. So stay tuned to the end for that. Be sure to subscribe right below right now, real quick. If you could, it's free and it's simple. Follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Look, we are all waiting on rivalry weekend next week, including the big one between Ohio State and Michigan. Of course, we now know that we'll be without Jim Harbaugh for sure because they're going to serve out the rest of their suspension. The big news on Thursday, he's going to serve the rest of the 3-game suspension. Big Ten's going to drop the lawsuit against, or rather Michigan's going to drop the lawsuit against the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is going to quit investigating SpyGate. Unbelievable. Again, check our previous podcast out. We detail everything on it wherever you get your podcast. Of course, the winner of that game next week goes on to the Big Ten championship, and we'll discuss that a little bit because they could be playing the Iowa Hawkeyes for the title. The Hawkeyes can clinch the Big Ten West with a win over Illinois on Saturday. Of course, the Hawkeyes are 8-2. They are ranked an impressive 16th in the latest college football playoff poll. But the bad news continues to roll in for this overachieving football team at Iowa. Throughout the year, they've lost numerous players due to injury, including the starting quarterback, Cade McNamara, after he transferred in from Michigan, tight ends Luke Lachey and Eric All, who both could be in the NFL someday. Noah Shannon was suspended by the NCAA for sports betting. I mean, it's been one thing after another for this football team. And Kirk Ferentz was basically forced to fire his son and offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, at the end of this season due to an anemic offense. But the Hawkeyes just keep on winning like the little train that could. And now they've lost their best player for the rest of this season. And no, I'm not talking about Torrey Taylor, their punter. And I'm not saying that as a joke. He is really the best player remaining. And I say that seriously. But by the way, the Australian native says that this will be his last season and he is entering the NFL draft and he will be the highest drafted punter in years. There's no question about it. But for the real news here, defensive back and punt returner Cooper DeJean suffered a lower leg injury in practice on Wednesday. He's the most exciting player. He's the most dynamic player. He is fun to watch on defense, on special teams. In 10 games, he had 41 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. Remember, last year, he had 3 pick sixes to set a school record, taking it to the house. He returned a punt for 70 yards for a touchdown to lead Iowa to a nationally televised primetime game against Michigan State in September. And on that same night, the team lost quarterback Cade McNamara for the season. So sad news for him. He played on a Hawkeyes defense that ranks 8th in the country in yardage and 3rd nationally in scoring, giving up just 12 points per game. And DeJean is also a finalist for the Nagurski Trophy and a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award, the Lott Impact Trophy, and the Bednarik Award. So he truly will be lost for Iowa and Iowa Hawkeye fans as well for the remaining of the season, these last 2 weeks of whatever bowl situation, and Big Ten championship game is right there for them. He will not be able to play in all that. That is a big blow. Regarding the Hawkeyes opponent, Illinois, 5-5, Fighting Illini, they still need a win in one of their 2 final games to become bowl eligible. Curious situation for them as well at quarterback. Brett Bielema says that Luke Altmaier, who had been the starter all year, will return to the starting quarterback position. Of course, an injury forced him to miss last game and the end of the previous game. But the last game against Indiana, look, some people say you shouldn't lose your job due to an injury, and he's healthy and he's going to be back in the lineup. Obviously, Brett Bielema feels that way. But his replacement, Ball State transfer John Paddock, threw for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Hoosiers in their overtime win, including the game-winning touchdown in that one. And then the previous week, Paddock came in late for the injured Altmaier and led the team to victory with a game-winning drive at the end. Even came in, there was a 4th and 11. You talk about pressure. If he doesn't make that play, the game is over. Made that play, completed 3 passes, got him downfield, scored the winning touchdown. It was amazing. And then the performance against the Hoosiers last weekend was incredible. But anyway, it's going to Bielema says Luke Altmaier will be the starter in that game. Meanwhile, some great news for David Braun at Northwestern. Northwestern did the right thing here. I've been calling for this for like 4 weeks now. They removed the interim tag from his title. He is now the head coach permanently moving forward. And you all know the story. He kind of came in. He's young and bleary-eyed. He was going to be the new defensive coordinator for Pat Fitzgerald. And then the whole hazing scandal blows up. And they look at somebody, you're the head coach, and a lot going on, little kids at home with the wife and family and all that. And this team only won 1 game last year, and he comes in here and they win 5 and they win 1 more. They're going to a bowl. So it's great that they're going to give him the head coaching job permanently. So congratulations to him. And again, this game is against Purdue this weekend. And Purdue's coming off of a nice win over Minnesota last week as well. 6 Big Ten teams are already bowl eligible, and 5 more have a chance to get 1 more win and get into a bowl as well, including Northwestern, as we just mentioned. A couple of them go head-to-head on the 7:30 primetime game on NBC. That's Nebraska going into Camp Randall on a Saturday night, taking on the Wisconsin Badgers, a team that's been very banged up. You know, these 2 teams, both with 5 wins. Badgers are banged up and thin, a lot of injuries. And Nebraska, if they could just figure out how to hang on to football, they could have won a few more games this year. They have been turnover prone. So keep an eye on those 2 things, depth for Wisconsin and hanging on to the ball for Nebraska. I'm telling you about this game on Saturday night because we, Locked On Big Ten, we are going to go live on YouTube at halftime of that game. And those of you that follow us, you everydayers out there, you know that we're out there Monday through Friday, and we've gone live on Saturday. Sometimes we do it earlier, around 3 o'clock after the early game, sometimes late at night after everything's done. But we've been finding a sweet spot. We think we get a lot of reaction to going on live at halftime of that 7:30 NBC game. So we'll do that on Saturday, and we'll take a lot of your comments live on YouTube as well. And we look forward to talking to you then. We'll have all the thoughts on all the reaction on all the games throughout the day. Plus, if there's anything new going on at Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, they will have played their game at Maryland. Maybe they will have gotten their 1,000th win in school history. Maybe not. We'll find out. All of your comments are welcome all the time. You can hit us up on X or Twitter at TalkBig1010. Don't forget our website, TalkBig1010.com, and also comments here on YouTube. So we do have some key matchups in this next to last weekend around the Big Ten. So we will take a look at all of that in just 1 minute on right here on Locked On Big Ten. So thanks for checking us out. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's you against the numbers. That's it. I'm going to tell you how this works. You grab maybe your favorite players or any players, up to 2 to 6 players, group them together, group some stats with them, and say more than those stats or less than those stats. And if you hit on all of them, boom, you're a winner. It's fantastic. You can even combine sports, football and basketball. For example, you could take LeBron James in his game tomorrow night, say LeBron more than 22 points, and pair it with Justin Fields, who's coming off an injury, the Bears quarterback against the Lions, and say more than one rushing touchdown. And if both players do more than with those stats, boom, you're a winner. It's a lot of fun. Show your friends your winnings, impress your friends. It's real easy to do. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So Jim Harbaugh will not be with the Michigan football team when they take on Maryland this weekend, right? Got that established, and still have to go there. And if they win, it is their 1,000th win in school history. No team has done that before. That'll be the most. Did you know the next closest team is Ohio State, by the way? And I think it's like 963. I looked it up earlier this week in that neighborhood. So regarding the Terps, interesting season, talented team here, not to be taken lightly by Michigan by any stretch of the imagination. Talia Tagovailoa at quarterback. They started out 5-0. Then I think Ohio State broke them mentally, to be honest. They were ahead in that game, and then they lost it, and then they lost that one and four straight. They did win last weekend on a last-second field goal against Nebraska, so they got to feel good about that. Got themselves bowl eligible. And again, I'm looking for a bright spot here. Maybe a bright spot being scheduled in between Michigan's game at Penn State last week, and then they're looking ahead to Ohio State next week. They get to tuck themselves into the schedule there. Maybe they get overlooked for a minute. But this Michigan team has been laser focused, so I'm really not sure. That game is at noon Eastern on Fox, by the way. Rutgers is at Penn State on FS1, and a few weeks ago, Penn State, they lost to Ohio State, and they were crushed. You know, Ohio State's breaking everybody. Ohio State broke Maryland. I think they almost broke Penn State. Penn State then barely beat Indiana the next week, and I'm wondering if something similar happened here. Will Penn State have a hangover from the loss to Michigan, changing offensive coordinators, and then maybe Rutgers hangs around for a minute? Regarding offensive coordinators, James Franklin fired Mike Yurcich after the loss last week against Michigan. And it seemed like a scapegoat move to me, to be honest. Running backs coach Juwan Cedar and tight ends coach Ty Hull will be the co-offensive coordinators. Cedar will be on the sideline. Hull will be upstairs in the booth. So we'll see how they do. Maybe a slow start in the first half. They would love to have a fast start. That's been part of the problem there with Penn State. No explosiveness, no rapid scoring, all that kind of stuff. Michigan State is at Indiana on the Big Ten Network. Both teams really need a win there. They're both coming in at 3-7. The Minnesota Golden Gophers head to Ohio State for a 4:00 kickoff on the Big Ten Network. And the Buckeyes, they're really playing well right now. They really are. They are a little bit depleted on defense, some injuries, and of course they just fell from number 1 to number 2 in the college football playoff poll. No fault of their own. I think Georgia was rewarded for beating a top 10 team. Meanwhile, Ohio State, they beat Michigan State. Let's face it, they're one of the more struggling teams in the Big Ten this year. And we'll see how healthy that Buckeye defense is for this game and for next week's game and their showdown in Ann Arbor against Michigan. And once again, don't forget at halftime, the Nebraska-Wisconsin game on NBC. We are going live with Locked On Big Ten, and we'll cover the entire day on YouTube. So check that out, and we'll take your comments as well. I also want to take a moment and thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Always appreciate you everydayers out there. You're what makes this go. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe down below. Just click it. It's free. There's no other obligation. And it just brings you into the Big Ten family here in the Big Ten Club on Locked On Big Ten. And no matter how you get this podcast, subscribe, share, follow, like Locked On Big Ten. It helps us out a lot. We are just growing leaps and bounds. Locked On in general. is growing in leaps and bounds. I want to tell you about Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for 24/7, for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league, like us. And you could go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe there as well to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel and be all a part of it. All right, we wind down the week with something that I always really enjoy doing, our Pigskin picks. We have those coming up next. Stay with us right here on Locked On Big Ten. It is time for the Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Jim Harbaugh is a game changer. His team's winning. He's not even there. Suspended 6 games this year, total. 3 in the beginning and 3 in the end. It's amazing. But you know what else is amazing? Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste really good. I have some here with me. Always have it here. Yeah, good stuff. In fact, I mean, it tastes great. And that's their thing. They make non-alcoholic beer that tastes great. People can't even tell. This beer wins taste contests against beers with alcohol in it all of the time. So you need to check this out. They're fit for all times. You could drink them anytime, anywhere, and any activity and make it more enjoyable. But no alcohol. So you can watch your kids play their games. You can watch your own big game. You can watch Big Ten football if you want. Maybe you're doing some work around the yard, around the house, drinking this. It's wonderful. No hangovers either. You can find Athletic in-store, online, and at bars around the country. I got mine online. I'm going to tell you how to do it. Although I just noticed the store across the street from me has it now. So that's awesome. So if you want to go online, go to athleticbrewing.com, athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers use the code LOCKED ON and get 15% off your first online order. That's Locked On, LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. So it is time for Pigskin Picks. We make everything absolutely official here. All right. Going to dive into this. Now, we've been running at a good clip. I'm going to tell you what we normally do. We go winners and losers. We will tell you what the point spread is. We will tell you what the over-under is. We will give you, and by the way, we get our lines from our friends at FanDuel. We, for the purpose of keeping it simple here, we'll just go money line, winners and losers. So my record's a little inflated. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'll show it to you in a minute. But I will give you advice on point spreads and over-unders if you care to partake. All right. So let's put it on screen here and check things out. Last week was my worst week, to be honest with you. Went 4-3. A couple of games didn't go the way. There were a couple of games at the horn, right? That got finished. There was an overtime game with Illinois and Indiana. There was the last second kick, Maryland and Nebraska. All these teams going to the last second. So it happens. It happens. Overall, 74-18. All right, let's go full screen on this and check it out. Let me get rid of. Hold on. Let me do a little editing on the fly here and get rid of this so you can see it. There we go. So we got Michigan and Maryland. Obviously, I'm going to take Michigan to win this game. I kind of try to make a case that maybe Maryland could be in an interesting spot of their schedule between Penn State and Ohio State, but I think at the end of the day, Michigan's winning this one. And I think they even ultimately at the end of the day muscle their way through and cover the 19. I do. A 3-touchdown win. Although I would tend to take the under on this one. 50 is a little high. I'll go under 50 on this one. Rutgers is at Penn State. Again, does Penn State have a hangover of any kind? They're 20.5-point favorites. I think they had a similar line, if I remember correctly, against Indiana a couple of weeks ago, coming off the Ohio State loss, and they did not cover. So I think Penn State wins. I don't think they cover this 20.5. I don't. The over-under at 41.5. I could see Penn State winning this like 24-10. That gets the under. That has them not covering but still winning. That's what I see in this football game. Rutgers is a good team now. They are. And I know they got blanked by Iowa last week, but they're a good team. They're a good defensive team, and they run the ball well. They don't throw particularly well, but they run the ball and they play pretty solid defense. That could keep a game closer for a half a minute, right? Michigan State is at Indiana. I've waffled on this one back and forth. I'm going to go with Indiana because they're at home. Barely covering the 3.5. And I will take I'll take the over on the 47 points on this game. I think this is going to be there's going to be a lot of points here in this. Also, what else do we have? Let's go to Purdue at Northwestern. Purdue a 3-point favorite on the road, over under 46.5. I don't think so. I think Northwestern's ready. They want that 6th win. Although, how many times do you see a coach get a contract or a contract extension and they lose the next game? Seems like it happens all the time. And that's what's going on here with David Braun. He got the contract. But I think Northwestern's a better football team. I really do. And I will I'll take them for the win. And the over. I think they'll score a lot of points on Purdue. I think Purdue will score some points in this game. Over 46.5. We have Illinois at Iowa. Iowa by 3. I'm not sure. Illinois is playing better lately. And I mentioned the Cooper DeJean injury is going to be big for Iowa. But every injury they have, somebody steps up. It's at Kinnick Stadium. That crowd's going to be amped up. I'm gonna take Iowa on this one, only because it's at home. And as you know, it is my policy to take the under 30.5. That's actually high for them. It was in the 20s last week. 30.5. Take the under. Minnesota is at Ohio State. Ohio State at 27 and a half point. Oh, let's go here on the screen. We got Nebraska, Wisconsin. 4.5. I'm going to take Nebraska in this one and the over under at 37. Yes, that's right. I did skip Minnesota. Ohio State wins. The cover the 27.5. I would take the under here. Minnesota's a good defensive team, and they may bog this down just a little bit. Take enough to take the under. 50 is a big number, but give me Ohio State to cover at the end of the day. There. All right, there you have it. And don't forget, Nebraska and Wisconsin. We're going live at halftime here on Lockdown Big Ten of that football game. All right, so we are all good to go. It's been a very busy week as well. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can hit me up on Twitter. And there it is right there. Our X at Talk Big Ten number 10. Website, talkbig10number10.com. And also on YouTube with your comments. Be sure to subscribe before you go, please. That helps us out. And follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. And you get the latest episode of Lockdown Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Again, Locked On has launched that first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Be sure and check that out as well. Have yourself a great day and a great weekend. And as always, thank you for checking us out. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.